All right, so when we are talking about the evaluation of sources, really getting to the heart of whether or not a source is credible, there are three things that I need you to consider. They are currency, scope, and authority. When I say currency, I mean timeliness. Is this information up to date? So if I were to ask you to do some research on technology and you came back with an article from the 1990s, that would not be a credible source because it's not up to date. Obviously, technology is something that changes rapidly. So pulling something from the 1990s would not be a valid source because it's not going to meet that currency standard. Scope is the information in depth. So if you're reading through a source and it gives you very basic information, that is not going to be a credible source because a credible source is going to go into detail. It's going to go into some depth. Also, a credible source is going to pull in multiple perspectives. So you won't just receive the piece from the author themselves will also pull in previous research or other expert opinions. They'll reference those in the text. That's how you get that in-depth look at something. So currency and scope, authority being the final piece. Authority is about who the writer is, who the scholar is that has presented this information. Where are you getting this information? What are their credentials? What is their connection to this field? Can we trust them as a valid, credible source? So looking at the person and the writer and the people that monitor the information, are they trusted experts in this field? So currency, scope, and authority are the three things that I want you to look at when you find sources as you're going forward today and then for always as you're examining different things. I want to look at a couple of examples. So right out of the gate, we're looking at the immigration website, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website, which is uscis.gov. My question to you is this a credible source? And I'm sure that you all already know, and you guessed it, credible source, absolutely. Why? So right out of the gate, it's a .gov website, and a .gov website means that this is something that is monitored by a government agency. A government agency consistently reads through it, updates when necessary, so you're getting both the up-to-date information, so you're getting currency, and you're also getting the authority piece because a government agency is going to be the trusted expert when it comes to this. They are setting the policies and communicating them on this website. So certainly authority, certainly currency. In terms of scope, this website is going to have everything that you need to know. It's going to pull in all the different questions that you might have related to policy or immigration procedure and process. This is your spot. This is where you go. So they are the trusted experts. It's monitored by a government agency. It's going to be relevant and up to date. It's also going to be in depth. So you're getting currency, scope, and authority in the same website. Here's another example. We got ESPN.com. This is an outdated article, certainly, but it is about the NFL trade draft. Talks about what it looks like in the background. You can see that Bill Belichick might be on the phone, which is sometimes hard because Bill Belichick would be considered an expert in the athletics and football specifically. But is it a credible source? And the answer to this is no. So right out of the gate, .com is usually a red flag. So if you see a .com website, you want to look at it a little bit more critically because a .com website is not always evaluated regularly. So the authority piece may be lacking. This is not credible because ESPN in this particular piece is going to be opinionated. So the bias is going to be very apparent. And we want to make sure that we're looking for bias when we review an article. There are, at no point in this article, is there any reference to another person's perspective. It is individual mindset, individual perspective, meaning that it's going to be biased. There's no way around it. It's going to be opinionated, and therefore it cannot be considered to be a credible source. It's merely for entertainment. So you want to make sure that your sources are pulling in those multiple points of view. The Onion. Now, if you're familiar with The Onion, you know that The Onion is, it's satire. So it is not a serious news source. It is solely in existence to poke fun of different things happening in the world. It is solely social commentary and entertainment. I want to show you a couple of examples just because The Onion is hilarious. But every year I have students who submit work to me and The Onion is the reference. And so I just want to highlight that The Onion is not credible, certainly amusing, but not credible because it is satire. It is social commentary. It's not meant to be taken seriously as truth. Here's a couple of examples. This one is about Don Jr. and Eric Trump digging, trying to get to Paul Manafort to free him for custody. Obviously, this is photoshopped, not a true, credible source. This one is about Jeb Bush and his one-man presidential campaign tragedy. So if you followed the election cycle in 2016 and leading up to it, you know that Jeb Bush was in the primary season going against Donald Trump for the Republican nominee, and of course he did not win the nomination. It went to Donald Trump. And so if you remember Jeb Bush at all, I'm sure that you know the Bush family. This is making fun of Jeb Bush and his failed presidential campaign. This one is Joe Biden handing out loose GT cola to unexpected trick-or-treaters. So again, this is not meant to be real. This is completely social commentary, funny. It is meant to entertain. That is the sole purpose. So The Onion is not a credible source. IMDb. This is, if we're looking at this particular page, we're looking at the biography of Charlie Chaplin. This website gives you his birth date, his death date. It gives you his height, and then it has a breakdown of his biography. The question would be, is this a reliable, credible source? IMDb is the largest movie database, so you potentially could argue that it has good information about Charlie Chaplin, but this is truly not a credible source because IMDb, much like Wikipedia, allows for any user to upload information at any time. So you and I could log in today and change information about Charlie Chaplin or any other actor who has a biography on their website. So it's not monitored that well. There's no expectation of expert level knowledge. There's no references on this page also, so again, we're not pulling in the multiple perspectives. It is a .com website, which is that first red flag that just asks you to go a little bit deeper. Can a .com site be credible? Absolutely. But when you see a .com, you need to dig a little bit deeper to make sure this is a reliable, credible source. So heading on, looking at a .com, here is auto.howstuffworks.com. This particular article is talking about hybrid cars. Is this a credible source? So this is breaking down the auto industry and how hybrid cars work. And it's a .com website, so I imagine many of you may have thought that it's not a credible source, but it is credible, and this is why. While it's not a .gov, while it's not an edu, while it's a .com site, if you click on the bottom of that website, you'll see that it is owned and managed by the Discovery Channel, which is a credible site or credible source. And then also, if you check the About Us and the FAQs and you read up on the authors, you're going to find that they themselves are credible. So you can read on, you see the Kareem Nice and Julia Layton. If you were to click on their names, it would tell you more specifics about them and their background and why they are trusted source or trusted experts in this particular subject matter. So here, to give you an example, this particular author has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Cornell. It breaks down his career history, and so you understand that this person does know. He is a contributor to the Discovery Channel's source, but our website, but he also has clearly a background. He is a trusted expert in this field. Here we go. MSNBC at the top and Fox News at the bottom. Are these credible sources? Depending on who you are and what you value and what you believe, you may watch these regularly. You may watch MSNBC, you may watch CNN, you may watch Fox News. Depends on what makes the most sense for you on an individual level, but are they credible? No. None of those sources. Fox is not, CNN is not. Number one, there's a .com website, which again makes us go a little bit deeper. It takes out that expectation of intellectual standard, but also these news channels have bias. Absolutely. I'm sure none of you are surprised by this, but CNN does lean left. Fox News tends to lean right. All of these news stations have a clear bias, and it comes out in the interviews, it comes out in the commentary, it comes out in how they phrase things, the language. You could see the same story on the Fox News channel, flip to CNN and see the same story, and it is a drastically different title, drastically different perspective. They're presenting on the same story, but the bias takes control on how they present the information. So there are certainly conservative views to Fox News, certainly, and then MSNBC, CNN, New York Times. They're all truly biased towards a liberal perspective. So when you're watching these news sources, you just want to keep that in mind, that there is bias. And that's just the way that it's the name of the game. My question to you would be, are we ever truly free from bias? And I would argue that really we are not. Bias is expected. Your job is not to try to wipe bias away from your experience, but it's to recognize it, to see it, not just in others, but in also yourself, right? So these are not going to be credible sources. And these are just some others. Breitbart tends to lean conservative, Politico, The Daily Show, they're all going to lean, those for the most part tend to lean more liberal. So it doesn't necessarily matter where you're watching, what you're watching at home. If you enjoy The Daily Show, if you enjoy Fox News, just know that those are entertainment and they are opinionated, and that's certainly fine. But in terms of evaluating critically and using in an academic setting, you're going to want to focus on sources that are committed to bringing in multiple perspectives and trying to manage that bias. Because while we can never be free of bias, if we bring in multiple perspectives, then we're going a long way to address that bias and try to level off and provide a multitude of viewpoints. So again, go back. Currency, is it up to date? Is it timely? Scope, is it in depth? Do we go into detail about everything that you need to know? Authority, who is telling you this information? Where does it come from? What is their credential? How are they connected to the subject? And how and why can we trust them? That's it.